Here we go, Fuzzy Belvedere. Let's okay, so this one is exciting for me. Now, one of the biggest things, Fuzzy, that came out of the ABK deal was, look, I think it's safe to say tip of spear, Call of Duty, right? Is it in Game Pass? Isn't it in Game Pass? Well, guess what, folks? It was in Game Pass, and it still sold better on the PlayStation 5. 65% of sales were on PS5, even though it was on Xbox Game Pass. Go figure, right? But Xbox made a lot of money, Microsoft made money, and we got it into our service, and all we had to do was pay $30 for the upgrade, right? So, of course, when you talk about ABK, a couple things come to mind. Blizzard, WoW, Call of Duty. But there were a lot of smaller titles in there that were big on the Xbox 360 days. And there were no bigger than Prototype 1 and 2. Prototype 1, more specifically, is the best of the series, hands down. Well, we have a report here from InsiderGaming.com, written by Mike Straw, published on April 12th. And it says, new prototype game in the works, playtester claims. Now, let's read directly from the article. And it goes on to say this, ladies and gentlemen, a new prototype game is reportedly in development, according to a user on Reddit by the name of Big B. Big B goes on to say that they were given details about a new game in the series as part of a recent study group session. And this is what it goes on to say. The user claims that the game will see Alex Mercer, who was the original protagonist, return and take on that role once again. Gameplay will reportedly feature shape-shifting and transforming into other people in order to, quote-unquote, infiltrate areas. Lastly, the game will once again be based in New York City. Now, Insider Gaming, according to the article, reached out to Bigsby and regarding their claims, and was told the following. Now, check this out, folks. This is directly from the playtester, and I quote, "It was a YouGov survey which asked me to sign an NDA and confirm that I would not disclose the contents. It then confirmed a series of features that upcoming games will include and how popular this was with me, percentage-wise. It was not a playtest, but did specifically ask that these features were already planned as part of an upcoming game. Insider Gaming has yet to fully verify the validity of the claims, but felt it was a rumor worth covering. As always, until it's verified by Insider Gaming with more details or officially announced by Activision, take all of the information with a giant grain of salt." Now, look, Fuzzy, Prototype is one of those, and I've heard the comparisons. Like, when you think of, superhero open worlds, a lot of people will equate that with Spider-Man for PlayStation, and for good reason. Spider-Man 2018 is brilliant. Is it perfect? No, but it's still a brilliant game. Spider-Man 2 was good, just not better, at least in my opinion, than 2018. I really, again, folks, I'm not going to, try and play any violins for you. The Miles Morales, expansion, if you want to call it that, really hit home for me personally, but that was for personal reasons. I loved every second of it. I really did. A lot of people in the community, Fuzzy, when you look at Prototype, they've kind of one-to-one it with Spider-Man, being this big open world, swinging around, doing all these crazy moves. And of course, unlike Spider-Man, he's shape-shifting into generals and into people that in the military to walk into bases and things. Well, it seems like that's going to be returning. And I got to say, like I said, a lot of us in the community have been saying, man, where are all of these Activision games? Where's Prototype 1 and 2? Where's Singularity? I mean, hell, where's Guitar Hero? Like, if you don't want to put them up on the store for sale, fine. I have every disc, and I have a brand new freaking guitar that released last year, just jazzing to go. So where are these games? Now, we've heard some different things about Call of Duty and bringing back some of the older games, remaking some of the older games, maybe like World of War, gets a remake, not just a fresh coat of paint. I mean, like a remake, and that would be kind of dope. But to hear that there's a new prototype, and it actually has a name. It's called Prototype Evolution, is what it's called. Fuzzy, let's get into this because this is exciting, right? This is something I think. Now, granted, I know, 5 years ago, this would have been an Xbox exclusive. Well, Prototype was everywhere when it came out, right? It was here, there, and everywhere. I would imagine it's going to be everywhere again. But this game, I think, would be one of those games that you just keep adding these AAA experiences to Xbox Game Pass. And like the first story, at some point, people are going to be like, you know what? I'm not paying $80 for a Nintendo game. And Sony's raising their prices, and Sony hasn't put out a big first-party game in a while. I think I'm going to go with Xbox. Let's get into Prototype Evolution. Are you excited for what could potentially be the third game in the series?
Well, yes, but I do want to start with one thing, and a few people made some funny comments about it with the NDA that this person signed, which
again, that was hilarious. It was like a joke. It's like you pulling my leg. I signed an NDA, but here you go.
Now, I've signed quite a few of them with Microsoft. I'm not going to disclose what they were about, but
you
Microsoft
signed an NDA, sir. Don't do it.
Yeah. Microsoft does this a lot with things that they want feedback from their player base. So I could see somebody doing this. Now, will they get found out? I'm pretty sure at some point Microsoft will figure out who's the leaker. But in the grand scheme of things, I think Microsoft is doing a lot of this stuff behind the scenes right now as we speak on a variety of titles. But when it comes to Prototype, I think the big thing is we've always wanted our own superhero. And we know Phil is not the biggest fan of licensing. So this would be a great way to kind of have the best of both worlds, where it's an IP you own that you have pretty much the whole slate or whole freedom to, take it in any direction you want. It's almost like, a beloved title that was on PlayStation, like with Infamous. I'm surprised they haven't considered remastering that. But all of that aside, I think making a new part or a new chapter in the Prototype series is a worthwhile adventure or worthwhile venture for them to do. It checks the box for a superhero or anti-hero, depending on how you play it. It also checks the box for a title in their library of titles to bring back that people have actually asked for. Like Hexen was one that, Phil had mentioned, and I think he even made mention for, Guitar Hero, but a lot of people said Tony Hawk, which they've already brought back. Some people wanted the Crash series, which they've done some stuff with that as well. Having Prototype, that was another one that was high on the list. And if we can get a lot more of these types of titles, I can't remember, was it Raven that did Prototype originally? Raven Studios, I think. I can't remember, but if they could bring back a lot of those, earlier titles that they had during the 360 era back to, Xbox in general, or even if it goes multi-platform, I think they'll find a pretty decent sized audience for it. And, having something along those lines, shape-shifting, having a stealth element, let's say, or infiltration by doing the shape-shifting, or the different, morphing that you can do as far as the weapons or damage type stuff, almost like Venom type of deal, would be nice. But I hope this is something that we see in the next few years, or maybe we see, a vertical slice, maybe partially CGI trailer this June, because Xbox is definitely working on a lot of stuff. Like we know they have roughly, I think, 15 more titles that are going to release within the next 2 to 3 years. And there's probably another 10 to 15 that we don't know about completely, whether it's just a code name and nothing more, or we haven't even gotten the code name yet for. So if this is one of those projects, I can't wait until they give us more info on it. Fingers crossed we see something in June.
You know what? That's an interesting theory. One of the things that I think it's safe to say with Xbox more specifically is owning Activision and owning Bethesda. You have now granted, yes, they're part of the big umbrella, but they're still their own publishers. They're still working on things. And again, this is just me kind of spitballing here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what's exactly happening with the Activision games. Obviously, there's been a couple of Call of Duties in there. They just dropped Diablo 3 was in there, just magically dropped into there. That probably should have been there already, but okay, fine, whatever. It took this long. We don't know exactly why the older games haven't jumped into it. Now, see, okay, so we do and we don't know. The part that we do know is like when Sony adds a game to their service, it is the game that you played 17 years ago. Like if you played Twisted Metal, Black, even though that's one of my favorite in the series, by the way, freaking awesome. I would listen. I know I'm part of the problem. Remake that from the ground up. Give me a new Twisted Metal Black. I'm in. Take my money. That was my favorite in the series. But if they put that into their service, you're playing what it looked like on the. I think that what was Black? Was that PlayStation 2 or 3? It might have been 2. I don't remember. It's been that long. But that's what the version you're getting. Unlike with Xbox, you are getting HDR boost, you are getting FPS boost, you're getting all these things. I don't know if because the catalog is so extensive, they just don't have the manpower. Now, we know that they do have a team because Sarah Bond said so. They have a team that's dedicated to both forward and backwards compatibility. I don't know if it's the same team that made backwards compatibility happen, from the 360 to the Xbox One days. I would imagine yes to some extent, but how big is that team? Because Activision has a ridiculous amount of games. So I'm going to imagine, you have to take a certain amount of games, work on those games, and then go. It can't be just, copy and paste folder, drop it in, and you're good. I don't think that's the way it works, Fuzzy Belvedere. But this is exciting for me because even though I liked 2, I didn't love it. I'm not sure why, but I remember at least fondly loving the original. Prototype 1 was amazing. And I really think that there is room because he's not a superhero, he's an anti-hero, sure, right? So he's chopping up everybody in front of him and you know what his motivations are, right? So it's great, but I would love to see this happen. I hope that again, sorry that the guy broke the NDA and he's probably going to be in some sort of trouble because I've signed quite a few NDAs and I won't even utter the word of what I signed because, I'm not trying to get sued because this is a little ass channel and I don't have protections. So, pause. Hold on a second. Hold on a sec there. But yeah, so look, this is again, folks, it's going to be an evolving story, just like the character himself. I would imagine that we will continue to hear these types of things because you're right, Fuzzy. They are working on these things behind the scenes. It's not just Xbox doing Xbox things. It's Activision still doing their thing. It is Bethesda still doing their thing. We're in for it. And as an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, like we said in the first opening topic, right now, you are winning. You are able to play your video games no matter how many release in a week, and actually be able to play them, not worrying about who's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I think that is ultimately the dopest thing in gaming right now. Like I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be an expert or anything, but $80 games and a sub service that doesn't give you a lot of new things with Sony's, a price hike for the console, a potential tariff hike for everyone's raising their prices, and Xbox, they look like the good guy, and this is another game that could fall into the service, and you're playing it day and date for whatever the price is, whether it be $70 or $80. So I have a feeling that everyone's going to go to $80 at some point. You will still be able to play your games. Now, granted, could Game Pass go up this year? Could it go up next year? It's possible, but if I just want to say this to anyone listening from Xbox, don't be a boob and raise the freaking prices now. Don't do it now. It would be a really ugly look. But yes, Prototype, Evolution, potentially in active development. I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of the game. I think Alex Mercer is a great character, and I'd love to see what a skyline of New York at night, swinging and flying in the air as this creature. It would be pretty dope.